Not forget to actually hit the record button. So hello, welcome to our third Introduction to Music workshop, where we will be talking about intervals in chords. So last time we talked about the major scale and the pattern that it follows, and whole steps and half steps, and how the major scale has scale degrees numbered from 1 through 7 for all the unique notes and things like that. This is just a review of what it looks like. I'm going to add on to that a bit today and talk a tiny bit about the natural minor scale. So as we talked about before, the major scales are used to make happy songs, and minor scales are generally used to make sad songs. Not always the case, but commonly. And again, the same rules apply. Each note has a scale degree, and then it follows a pattern of whole steps and half steps. It's not as neat as the major scale. Just letting you know that this all exists, because you kind of need to know this going into talking about intervals and stuff today. This is just something I'm going to throw out here because these words exist. There are word names for the scale degrees. So instead of just saying scale degrees from 1 through 7, they'll have unique names. So the ones that matter most are bolded and underlined. So we have a major scale here, and oops. It's all good. Okay. So for the major scale, these are the word names for all the scale degrees. So scale degree 1 is the tonic. 4 is the subdominant, 5 is the dominant, and 7 is the leading tone. Just letting you know in case I start throwing around that kind of vocabulary and you're like, what does that mean? Or in case like you go on the internet and start looking for things and you're like, what do these words mean? This is what they mean. So this is what it's like for the major scale. For the minor scale, it's all the same except for scale degree 7 is called the subtonic. The reason for this is because in a major scale, the distance between the scale degree 7 and your tonic an octave higher is a half step, and it leads, and scale degree 7 leads better into your tonic from that point. However, in a minor scale, the subtonic is, the scale degree 7 is a whole step away from the tonic, so it doesn't necessarily lead into scale degree 1 an octave higher as easily, I would say. So now we're going to talk about intervals. Intervals are easier to understand, I say, if you have a basic grasp of different types of scales. So they're a way that we describe the difference between the pitches of two notes. Last time we were looking at half steps and full steps and how they're more of a measure of distance between notes. Now we're going to be looking at these two notes and the quality they create when you play them together in succession. So we typically see intervals expressed in the format of a quality, like major or minor, or perfect, augmented, diminished, and then the scale degree as an orbital number. So I'm gonna do this really quick. There's too many desktops. This way? Okay. So here I have FL open. I have, for example, this is C major. So we have our tonic here. Oops. No, please. Be free. So we have our tonic here. This is C. And then we have D, which is scale degree 2 in our major scale. So the interval that these two create is essentially, it's like
I started laughing when you asked me that.
It's like
I started laughing.
specific feeling that you get out of playing the two notes in succession. It's kind of an abstract concept. We'll be talking, once you get into like specific intervals, it should make a little bit more sense. But instead of paying attention more to the distance between them, it's more so you know how they act in relation to each other. So there's too many desktops. So for example, major second, minor third, two different types of intervals. The quality of many intervals can be identified by using the scale, by using the scale of the lower note in question. So say you have a C and like an E above it, you could say, okay, here is my first scale degree C, and then let's see, like in the C major scale, E is scale degree 3. So you could say, okay, this is a major interval, and because E is scale degree 3 and C major, then you're creating a major third. So you can also say that because whole steps and half steps are measured distance, you can find all these intervals using whole steps and half steps. But I'd say that referring to scales makes it easier, at least to me. So we're going to be talking specifically about major and minor thirds. We aren't going to be going over all the intervals today, just some key ones we need to set up so we can understand chords, some basic chords. So a major third consists of two notes that are two whole steps apart from each other. If you want to look at it that way, it can be viewed as the difference between a note and the scale degree 3 of its major scale. So if I go all the way back here, this is the C major scale. This is scale degree 1, C. Our scale degree 3 in this scale is E. So if you're to play C and then E, that's a major third. It applies to even if I like raise this to like D major, for example. If I play a D and D in F sharp, that's also a major third. You're getting a feel for this? It's all making sense? Cool. Pull this back down. And then minor thirds they act in a similar way. They can be viewed as the difference between a note and the scale degree 3 of its minor scale. So if we go back through here, we see this is our natural minor scale right here. We have our scale degree 1, which is C, and then we have our scale degree 3, which is D sharp. It doesn't sound as happy as our major third does it. So again, this is our major third, this is our minor third. So you kind of have like happy, then you have like sad. It's an easy way to kind of remember them by, there's too many stops. All right, so now we're going to talk about perfect fifths and perfect fourths a bit. We need to talk about fifths because when we start talking about our basic chords, all of our basic chords have a fifth in them. But I might as well talk about fourths too, because perfect fifths are kind of weird because they're called perfect because there isn't really a major or minor version of them. They don't sound major nor minor, so that's why they're called perfect. So in both the major and minor scale of any given note, the fourth and the fifth are the same, so I'm going to put that out there. It's kind of the same concept. So if we take, C major, this is scale degree 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't necessarily sound happy or sad or anything like that. It's kind of meh. So that would be your perfect fourth. This is your perfect fifth. You're actually not supposed, I don't want to say not supposed to, but suggested that you don't just have an interval like this that's just a perfect fifth, because there isn't really any quality in between to like make the music drive somewhere. So if you want to have like two notes playing and it's an interval, it's recommended that you don't have a perfect fifth. We call it an open fifth when it's just those two notes playing. So now that we've gone over those, we're going to start talking about chords. So a chord is any groups of notes that are played together. They don't have to sound good together. So if you slammed your hand on a keyboard, congratulations, you played a chord at some point in your lifetime. So we can describe chords as being made up of specific types of intervals, which is why we brought that up earlier. And there are 4 common types of chords that we will be going over today. So first we have major chords. They generally sound happy. They're composed of a major third below a minor third. And you can view these as degrees 1, 3, and 5 being played in major scale at the same time. The tonic, medium, the dominant, if you want to be fancy about it. So let's construct a major chord. So we are in C. Let's draw in some notes here really quick. I'm just gonna do it over here. So let's start with C. As we saw before, our third is the difference between C and E. So we're gonna add a E up here, excuse me. And then we are going to put our fifth on top. Yeah. So as you can see here, this interval here, C, we've established is a major third. The interval between E and G is actually a minor third. So that's, oops, my bad. So if you play all of them together, you get a pretty major chord. If you want to be fancy, you can add more notes on top of it, but this is your basic major triad. Is everyone doing good so far? Cool. So if we go back here, and we go to this slide, the slide's about minor chords. They generally sound sad, similar to our minor third that we saw earlier. It's composed of a minor third below a major third, and it can be viewed as degrees 1 through 5 of a note's minor scale. So similar concept here. So if you go over here, you can actually just lower this by a half step, to be honest, because as we saw here, scale degree 3 in your major scale is E, and then scale degree 3 in your minor scale is only half step lower. It's D sharp. So we can afford to just move this a half step up and down depending on what we want. So the distance between these two, this is a minor third and this is a major third. To reiterate that. And if we play all of them together, we get the sad chord. Then you can add stuff on top of it, like any other good old triad.
So like
more
7s,
fancy.
9s.
14s, 11s, yeah. Crazy stuff.
Wait, were you talking about inversions too or no?
Not today. We can go over today. We actually have plenty of time. We can go over inversions actually. But yeah, this is basic minor chord. So now if we go to augmented chords, I like to think of these as creepily happy. That's kind of the way that I like to remember them, because they're composed of two major thirds. So if we go back here, we can make C to E be a major third, and then we can make E to G be a major third. And then we play them together. It doesn't really sound happy anymore, but I like to think of them as creepily happy, quote unquote, because when we play like a major third by itself, it sounds kind of constant. It sounds nice. It's nice to listen to. But if you stack another major third on top of it, it's like, those movies or whatever, when like there's the character and like they're smiling really creepily, like super cheesy, creepy smile, but they actually really want to kill you, kind of thing. That's what augmented chords remind me. So if that helps you at all. Yep. Also, they're called augmented chords because. So if we look at our C major scale here, our fifth is G. All we did was take G and erase it a half step and make it G sharp. So how perfect and diminished intervals work is that if you raise the higher note up a half step, it is now augmented. If you lower it by a half step, it is now diminished. So that's how you get the augmented chord name. Now we're going to move on to diminished chords. Is everyone doing okay so far? doing good. Awesome. So now we're going to talk about diminished chords. I like to think of these as extremely sad because, you know, minor third by itself is pretty sad. And then we stack two of them on top of each other, and it's just all the sadness. But similar concept here. So if we have our chord here, we established earlier that a minor third here, and if you're in C minor, C to D sharp, and then now we need a third from D sharp, so we get F sharp. And then if we play all of it together, it sounds more scary than extremely sad. Like, it's just the way that I memorize it. But yeah, and so if we were to go back here into, honestly, either of these, you can see that we have our fifth, we lower it a half step, it's F sharp. That's why the F sharp is on top there. And yeah. So I think that's about it actually. Yeah. Then we'll construct the following chords. You can do it on your own if you want. I'm not going to go over it today in this workshop.
Wait. Oh, never mind.
Huh? I kind of like.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, wait. Did you just give us the answer?
Yeah. Sorry. So let's go to the slide. So why is all this important? Well, we've been building up to something important that's actually going to be in the songwriting workshop next week, because I'm actually going to teach you how to write songs. So in every scale, there's a set of diatonic chords. A diatonic chord, if a chord is diatonic, it means it's part of the scale. We're going to be talking about the chords of a major scale and how they work. So each scale has 7 diatonic chords, and the chords are made up of notes from the scale in question. It's kind of a weird concept, but we're going to go into FL, actually, and explain this. So I'm going to take my major scale here, and my goal is to make a basic triad with each one of these notes here. So I'm going to start on C, and I need a type of third. I need a third. It has to be a third that's in C major. And the third that happens to be in C major that I can pile on top of C is E. And then from here I need a third that I need to pile on top of E that happens to be G. And now I have D, so I need a third that's in C major that needs to go on top of D, and that happens to be F. And I need a third on top of that, and I get A. So you can do this for all of the different scale degrees, and you get a pattern that looks like this. So if we're in C major, these are your diatonic chords. So you have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and then you have this weird circle thing right here. That means that this is a diminished chord. And that's just how things end up for the leading tone in our major scale. So we have B, third here would be D, and then we need the next closest third, and we get F, because F is in C major. And so it's the oddball of them. But the reason why this specific structure is important is because it allows us to talk about chord progression.
Oh,
So these chords allow us to build chord progressions. Chord progressions are a pattern of chords that we use in our music as a foundation for the different moods we can portray. I have a little video here, if you want to watch it after I put the slides up, about the effects of different chords under a melody. Because you can have a melody, and then you can put different types of chords under it, and it can sound, the mood can change drastically. So we'll talk a bit more about this next time. We're actually pretty good on time. Now that I understand, that's the end of my slides, basically. Yeah, it's only 5:30. And then there's the resources document. As always, if you want us to add anything to it, let us know. But I'm actually going to talk a bit about inversions, because that's under my slides, and I'm just gonna use FL for a bit. So, actually no, I'll keep this. I'll keep the scales. So say we have our, I'll start with, whatever. Let's start with C major, okay? So as we know, our bottom note of our regular C major chord is C. You call this the root of our chord. The root of a chord is essentially the note that our chord is based on. But that doesn't always mean that it has to be the bottom note of our chord. So for example, if I take C and I raise it an octave, this is still a C major scale. Not C major scale, C major chord, my bad. It's still a C major chord. It sounds different though, right? It sounds different from if it was down here. So if we move our C up an octave, we get what we call a first inversion. Inversions are really cool because they can breed a lot of creativity actually. Like you take any chord, oops, I didn't mean to do that. You take a chord you have like, I don't know, like this G sharp minor chord, and you take,
They're a good way of creating randomness.
yeah, so minor chord, flip the one an octave higher, it sounds different. It helps breathe life into your music if you want a chord, but you want to have like a different feeling than you would have if the chord was, if the root was at the bottom of the chord. So this is called a first inversion when you only have the root of the chord up an octave. You can actually also take our third. So in the case of C major, we have E, and we can move that up an octave, and that's also an inversion. And we call that a second inversion. If you were to just move the, oh, oops, my bad. This is why I do this to myself. Okay. If you were just to move the fifth, it would just be the normal chord except for an octave higher. So we have first and second inversions. Third inversions don't really exist. That's just shifting the whole chord up an octave.
Wait, I thought a third inversion exists if you put like a seventh.
Of the seventh?
Yeah.
But like with like a normal triad.
Yeah, you can't like.
Yeah. So those are basic inversions. I could talk about 7 chords. I could go on and on.
Please do actually. Because I'm like.
Do you guys want me to keep going? This is the question. You want to learn more? Okay. So we have our, I'm going to move this down an octave again. Our C major scale, right? Not C major scale, C major chord. I keep messing this up. What we can do, if we want to be fancy, is we can start adding notes on top of this. I'm just going to go over sevenths today, but there are more complex chords. So if we get rid of all these, because we're not dealing with these anymore. So we have our C major scale. We take our scale degree 7, which is B, and we throw this on top of our C major chord. Get this sounding chord. This is a C major 7 chord, not to be confused with a C7 chord, which is different. So again, we have regular C major chord. We take our B from our major scale, oops, and we shove it on top, and we get our C major 7 chord. If we lower the 7th by a half step, oops, not an octave, a half step, we get a dominant 7 chord. And this is actually the basis for a lot of jazz. stuff. Do you feel the jazz now?
Wait. What if we invert that?
Like,
Try to put
like
that
third,
C up there.
like,
Hold on.
like third inversion?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Wait, hold on.
oh, let's see. Well, we can do a first inversion with this. And it'll sound like that.
No, okay.
If we do a second inversion, it sounds like that. If we do a third inversion.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did second inversion. Let's see.
But yeah, so those are some chords. I actually kind of want to get you guys like working on something, just to be like, hey, I can make a melody and put some chords under. So I'm gonna switch over to activity mode now, but that's all the teaching I'm going to do today. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this talk about intervals and chords. Do you have any questions though? I didn't ask. Any questions? Questions? No. Okay, we're good. Awesome. Thank you all.